David W. Williams, also known as the retail trader. And what I'm going to talk about today is why they can't tell me my history and why they can make yours up. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because what we're dealing with in this world is a lot of people do not know the history of their family. They don't know how they got to where they're currently at, and they don't think it's important. They don't think it's relevant to their situation. They don't have any appreciation for it. And so then, therefore, they end up in scenarios where people from outside of their family, people from outside of their tribe, outside of their group, start telling them about their past, and they don't know any better. And then they're arguing with people about their family's past and their tribe's past and their group's past. And I don't understand why you would do that if you actually know how you got to where you're currently at. And I believe when you do not know the history of your family, people will show up and tell you anything and you will go for it. And I've seen this time and time again. It's one of the reasons why I don't let people that are outside of my group tell me the history of my family and my group, even if they have the same skin color as me. I won't even entertain it because I know they don't know. Somebody whose family just came over here in the 50s or the 60s doesn't know anything about this country pre that date. They don't know. They haven't been taught in school because the school doesn't teach it, and they haven't learned it on their own. Therefore, I won't entertain it. I don't care what their position is. Now, we do have people that have come from other countries, and they do respect the history of our people in this land. And so, therefore, they don't try to make up the history of our people in this land. But we also have people that come from other countries, and they just start talking. And it's like, what are you talking about? Because that's not really the history of our people in this land. So you have to discern between those two types of people. So it's not a like we're not going to paint them all with the same brush. But I've talked to people from Africa, and they literally told me that the civil rights movement was Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. The reason why they believe it is because they don't know any better. They didn't learn that in their country. They definitely didn't learn anything better inside the United States. So this is how they frame things. So again, when you don't know the history of your people, people will show up and tell you anything and you will go for it. And this is what happens. This is what's going to happen over time. As a certain generation of people start to die off, they're going to make up more and more history. Because why? There's going to be nobody there to contradict it because they're going to all be gone. That's how this is going to work. So they're just waiting. They're playing a waiting game. This is why you need to know the history of your people. Now, some people may say, you know what? Nobody in my family really kept good records, or nobody in my family was well known enough to where people really wrote about them. That's cool. It can start with you. It can start with you right now today. 11/21/2025. It can start with you. But I want you to understand something. When you don't know where you came from, and I'm not talking about from a macro standpoint, I'm talking about really from a micro standpoint, how you got to where you're currently at right now today, people will show up and try to tell you how you got here. And they will start making assumptions about your family based on what they believe without actually knowing. So let's go ahead and get into the content. So this is my great uncle. I call him Uncle Bill. I think his real name is actually William, but we call him Uncle Bill where I'm from. And this is a picture of him as a much younger man. This is also a picture of him as a younger man, but not as young as the previous picture. And we're going to kind of break down his history. Now, what I want you to understand is that he was born in 1900. He was a preacher. He was a missionary. He was an author. He also an educator. He's a published author. He also did a few hymns. He's a preacher, was a pastor over multiple churches, pastor over a church in Chicago for decades, was a missionary, did a lot of missionary work, also was a writer. He was born in Washington, D.C. in 1900 to William A. and Missouri Elliott Johnson. So first off, he was born in D.C. in 1900. Okay? His parents was already here. So we understand how long my family's been inside the United States. This is why I don't entertain a lot of people. And this is why nobody can come to me and tell me, well, you know, your people have just lived off the United States. I don't entertain. I won't even like go back and forth because I know they don't know any better. And they think I don't know the history of my family. So I have a great uncle, and we're going to kind of get into this, who was born in 1900 to people that were already here. Okay, let's keep going. So this is his parents, and that's William A. Johnson Sr. and Missouri Elliott Johnson. So William A. Johnson, he was in the Navy for 31 years. He was a chief petty officer, and Missouri Elliott Johnson was a housewife. Okay, so Navy and also a housewife. And they had Uncle Bill in 1900 in DC. So like I said, I've had people in DC, really the DMV area. We're going on now over 100 years, but probably now almost pushing 200 years in that particular area. Now, he was orphaned at the age of 3 with his sister and raised by his aunt, Delilah Elliott Nelson. So both his parents passed away. His sister is my great grandmother. Missouri, we all come through her. And I don't know who came before her because I don't have that record yet. But this woman, Missouri Elliott Johnson, we all came through her because his sister is my great grandmother. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so he attended Armstrong Vocational High School in DC. That high school is still in DC, but I don't think it's a high school now. I think it's a different type of school, but that actual location and the name Armstrong is still there. He also attended Freeling Hisley University. I couldn't get any information on that. In 1921, he met and married a woman named Ophelia Virginia. So they got married in 1921. He thought he wanted to become a lawyer to help people, but he felt called to become a pastor. So then he attended the Washington Baptist Seminary in DC. He was ordained in 1926. Then he became the pastor of Pisgah Baptist Church in DC in 1926. Okay, so now we're at the website for Greater Mount Pisgah Baptist Church. And what I want to show you is we're not just making this up. So this is their website, and it's their about page. And it says Mount Pisgah continue to progress on the dynamic leading of young, dedicated, energetic pastor, Reverend William A. Johnson, consecrated to God's work, membership increasing by 1929. The indebtedness of the church was eradicated. So we'll cross-represent the actual claim that he was a pastor at this church because the church on website tells you that he was a pastor at the church. So again, we're not just making this up. So he pastored at several other churches over the years, and he became known for promoting the social gospel that the membership worked for the common good of the church and the community. So in 1940, Reverend Johnson accepted a pastoral call from Greater St. John Baptist Church in Chicago, and then he also traveled to 29 countries with the World Baptist Alliance doing missionary and outreach work. So Greater St. John Baptist Church in Chicago is here. All my Chicago people know where it's at. This is the block that it's on. It's on 4821 Michigan Avenue. Relatively large church. Then we're also going to cross-reference that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cross-reference him being a pastor at Greater St. John Baptist Church. So here's an article from the Indianapolis Recorder in Marion County, October 25th, 1958. This is what we used to call microfilm, I believe. This is a picture of Uncle Bill, also known as William A. Johnson. So Dr. William A. Johnson, pastor of the Greater St. John Baptist Church in Chicago, Illinois, will deliver 5 soul-stirring sermons Monday, October 26th through Friday, October 31st. Then it kind of goes to Vice President of the Church Federation of Greater Chicago, instructor at Chicago Baptist Institute, Director of Religious Education, Baptist State Convention of Illinois. Then it goes to he has pastored such well-known churches as Mount St. Pisgah Baptist Church of Washington. So we're getting another cross-reference to he was being a pastor at that church. Also a church in Nyack, New Jersey, and also another church in Plainfield, New Jersey. So let's go back here. Greater Baptist Alliance, which is a really big group of Baptists that go around the world doing missionary outreach work. So he led as an instructor, dean, and president of Chicago Baptist Institute. And here is a picture of the Chicago Baptist Institute that he was the dean and president of that's still currently standing. So his wife passed away in May 1995. He passed away in December 1995. So he was married for 74 years. So here's the thing. His parents were married and he was married. Now, they never had any children. However, he came out of a marriage. His parents was married, right? my great grandmother was married. So there's a long history of people in my family being married. So what I want you to understand is that when you don't know the history of your family, people will show up and tell you anything because that's their history. But that doesn't mean that's your family's history. So when you don't know the history of your family, people will show up and tell you anything and you'll go for it. And so the reason why I wanted to do this really, really quick breakdown is because I think it's really, really important that people document where they come from and how they got here because it gives you a point of reference as opposed to and kind of what we see to where whoever I have a child with is really not that important. So I'm really not that important. I don't know where I come from. I don't know how I got here. And even if nobody has done it before you, it doesn't mean you can't be the first person to start. However, if you don't believe that that is important, then you don't change anything about the behavior. And then people show up and they tell you all kind of stuff and you just go for it. So the reason why I don't ingest a lot of this stuff on social media, I just don't buy it because I know better because I know the history of my family. That's the number one reason. I know how I got here. I know what they were doing. So we have what I call Uncle Bill, who was very, very well established and very well known as a pastor without any social media. And so I want you to understand this is why I look at certain things the way I look at it. This is the reason why I have a perspective on certain things is because I actually know how I got here. Hope you got some value from it. David W. Williams, also known as a retail trader. Talk to you later.